Greetings. Peace and love. Peace and love to you all, family. Welcome to another YouTube video with me, your host, Mathix. We're back at it again. Namhlanje, we're going to be talking about war. And this is something that is very important. And I would suggest that you stick out throughout the whole video. As I'm going to give you different gems throughout. Before we get started, don't forget to like and to subscribe to the channel. The whole technical stuff. Click the notification so that you get notifications every time I make new videos and so on and so on. Like it and share it so we can spread the love and the information so we could all awaken, family. So, this I don't even know how I'm feeling because the subject is a very spiritual warfare and how to protect yourself. That's what we're gonna call this. Now, in order to understand what we are talking about when we are mentioning spiritual warfare, you're going to have to understand certain principles or powers or laws that are in effect all throughout time and space, all throughout what we call relativity, all throughout what we call reality. And those are certain laws that are emanating or that are emanated or projected from the mind of the Creator. And so now one of those laws, the first laws actually, is the law of mentalism. According to the ancient Africans, they say that the first law is monachano, the brain, the mind actually, because the brain is the physical manifestation of the mind. Or we could say that the brain would be like what a cell phone is to the internet. So your brain is what a cell phone is to the internet, but now to your mind. So your mind uses the brain to express itself. And so the ancients, they spoke about what the first law is the mind, the brain, monachano, which in the East, mankind, the word man doesn't actually refer to man as the gender per se, that I'm a masculine being. The word man meant the thinker, which is the manas or manus. Because even in the language of Sepedi, which is the side of genealogy that I have from my mother's side, Kamapeding, when they say that someone has an idea in that language, bare onale manus. In the East, manu is the thinker, it's the mind. So all these stories are related. They come from one place, and you're gonna see how all of this relates as we get into this whole subject of spiritual warfare. So now they spoke about the first law being the mind, mentalism, and that law was all is mind and everything in the universe is mental. So that's the first law, that everything and anything that could, that has, and that is possibly happening is a result of the mind, which means that the mind has to be the causal of what begins, then that which we would later see in the world of effects, being the world of the material. So the mind begins all things, just as the phone or the TV and the couch and everything that you are using and you are seeing around your room, all of that started as manu. It started as something. It started as an idea in someone's mind. So everything that you see, down to the clothes that you're wearing, when you went to that store and you're buying the clothes, the shoes, the phone, whatever you're using, you had to visualize that in your mind. Like, oh, I'm gonna have this car. When you think about it, where you want to live, it all happens here. It's the blueprint. So now, when it comes to the fact that all is mind and everything in the universe is mental, then you're gonna have to now understand that all war is mental. Dintwa kamoka are mental. They are of the mind. In one of the teachings, the late great Credo Mutua speaks about, the elder says there, he says that you can find it in the language of the people, where when they speak of war they call it imbi. And in the same poetic expression, when something is not attractive to the human eye, they say that that particular object, that particular thing that you're observing, lento le yimbi. So in the same way that they spoke about iskati being time and umkati being space, they left it also on a vote. Remember that these were oral people. In the inception of time, in the beginning, the ancients, they did not write things down in hieroglyphics, and all that came later. In the beginning, all these were things that were being passed down through pictograms in the mind, and over time that became something that was passed down orally through stories. It was only eons later that all of this information started being recorded physically, when humanity began going into a slumber, meaning that now certain parts of our brains or certain parts of our psychic, spiritual parts were becoming dormant. So we weren't able to retain stories of our divine origins and our future goings. We weren't able to retain that anymore because of the slowing down of the vibration. As we moved further away from the center of the galaxy, that core which they call Unapku. So the further we moved from that, we became sluggish in consciousness. This is happening in the mind. So now the ancients, they began to leave these stories physically. So they began to map or chart the stars. They began to navigate because they understood that, hey, a great sleep is coming. So in order to prepare, because remember that these were psychic people, they were the original prophets. So they weren't seeing into your fridge to check if upete, udlama carrots, or if last night you drank Coke, or you were having Pepsi. No, they were looking into the very fabric of existence. They were tapping into time itself. And so they were able to see in a future timeline that humanity would fall from grace. And so they left stories, hieroglyphics, poems, games, music, writing, all these things. They left it behind, knowing that the earth would move out of that cycle of darkness, coming out of that age of Pisces. They knew that information would begin to come to the surface again, that there'd be more freedom, people could express themselves more. Because what we're doing now, we couldn't do it back then. And so now all this leads me to say now that the reason that you are seeing all these wars happen is because the people who are studying the wars or fighting the wars understand that he who wins in a war wins in the mind, because all wars are mental, because all things are happening psychologically. It's all a psychological thing that is happening here. So and if you actually look at it, the most wars that have been fought throughout human history have been religious wars. So religious wars, understand why. He who can control the perception of deity, or he who can control your perception of who you say or who you think or who you feel God is, if someone can control that part of you, even though it's psychological, they can have control of your body without them needing to be there. Meaning they can get you to go to certain places because you are now associating those places with that given God that they are controlling psychologically in your mind. So that's why the most wars that have been fought throughout history have been religious wars, because those who can control the perception of Dios or God, Dul, they also control your reality in the physical, because God is a dual entity, or the perception that we are seeing of God in the physical, because we have the two hemispheres. God is yin and yang. It has both aspects. So if one can control one aspect, they may not even need to do anything to you physically, because you yourself will imprison yourself. So that's why the most wars that have been fought throughout human history have been religious wars, because then those who now control, because they've won physically through might, through weapons and whatnot, now they can also control the perception of history. They can tell you what history is, because it is said that the victors of war are the ones who rewrite the history. They tell the story, of course, because they are the ones in power. They're the ones who've they were victorious. So it's either they kill you out, genocide, or they enslave you and now give you a history. This is all of what happened to human history. So when you are speaking of spiritual warfare, it goes beyond you just fighting your neighbor, or you thinking your neighbor is jealous of you because you're putting in some new paving or you repainting your house. It's deeper than that. It's deeper than that, than thinking that like you saw maybe a dead bird outside. You thought like maybe you're thinking, oh, your neighbor's trying to curse you or get to you. We're thinking of spiritual warfare on those levels, that people are trying to do things to you on those levels. And yes, there are people trying that. But now, getting into the solution, I'm setting you up here with all this depth here to also prepare you for the fact that the solution might be something so easy but also so profound, because how are you going to do what I'm about to tell you if you are not stable within yourself? So people might be trying to do things to you physically, and you could say that it's a spiritual warfare, because in the dream worlds you can see these things sometimes. Or sometimes when you're around people you feel certain things. It's because like they have certain thoughts of you, or they say things about you when you're not there. And when they come in your energy, especially if you're an empathic being, if you can sense other people's, you can always feel like when you're around certain people. So that is already automatically happening on the spiritual level. But now the depth of it comes from you understanding that is just one level. That is so close. That is happening mostly on an ethereal plane and on an astral plane, which is the star plane, where you go when you dream. The depth of spiritual warfare is he who controls who you say God is. So you are fighting many wars. You're fighting wars with, yes, your neighbors and whatnot, but there are those who you could call the hidden government, or the hidden rulers, which they're not really rulers until you realize what their game is, because once you figure their game out, it falls apart. But so long as people don't know this, what they're able to do with knowledge and knowing the power of the mind and all that is mind, they can manipulate your perception of of that innermost personal thing about you. So that most sacred part of you, like that most holy of holiest things, that is your relationship with God. And they can go past all your security into and break into your vault and control that part of you. And that is the greatest spiritual warfare that there is if someone can get to that core. You see how you might have a pin for your phone, so that like maybe like people don't just like look at your history and all of that. Imagine someone having access not just to your phone, but to every record of everything that you've ever done in every lifetime, in every timeline, in every incarnation. It's someone having that ability, or it's someone having got into that most sacred place of you, that part which is your spark, your soul. So someone has gotten to that part of your soul and has begun to manipulate it to now trap your soul into perpetual cycles of you hurting yourself, of psychological stresses, They give you all these fake problems, these fake fears in the news. They create all that is to always keep you in this state of you constantly creating the next trouble, the next thing, you're constantly in a state of fear. And that is the greatest spiritual warfare. It's because someone has got into that most sacred part of you and they are now able to manipulate that. So that's why all religious wars, or all the greatest wars that were ever fought, which nothing can be great about a war because really, imbi. But those who've won in wars, and you can only ever rule a person mentally or say that you're controlling their soul for only a limited time, because the soul within itself, it's unbound. It will always find a way to correct itself. It's self-correcting. In the same way that if you hurt your skin or you fall and you scrape yourself, your body will know how to self-correct. When you're sick, your white blood cells, all of that is just the divine intelligence manifesting throughout your organs and your glands and your different cells, your red blood cells, your these type of hormones. All of that are self-correcting, physically manifested aspects of the mind of God in you. So your soul is what is giving that ability, or it's what's giving your body to have that in the first place. So if something that can provide to a body an intelligence to self-rectify itself, then don't you think that that very same thing that is the cause of that can rectify itself by eventually finding out in some lifetime that I think I'm repeating cycles here. And that is what separates the human from most beings in existence. The ability to self-correct, to self-reflect and correct. It happens on all levels. In the same way that your body can just easily fix itself, your soul does that on a psychological, mental level. It just knows how to do that. It's its programming. But if someone can control that part of you, then they can control what you think that sacred part of you needs in order for you to be connected to it. They can control what you do with your money, with your time, your energy, your investments, your relationship, because they're controlling that part of you, the most sacred of part. And it's dangerous because they are controlling it with human minds. So they put limitations on things that are unlimited unto themselves. You can't limit the divine. You can't limit it, but the human being has limited God to petty human emotions such as jealousy. A being that has created all things, that is all things. And you say that being could be, come on, man. Like, really, when you think about it. But that, again, is our perception of who or what we say God is. Because God is an ever-changing truth. What God was to some people or to you today is not what God was to you when you were a kid. Your parents had to teach you. You had to learn some things for yourself and then teach your parents, and then they teach you this, and then you learn this there. So your perception of God will forever change. You can never and will never, it's impossible to reach a place where you can put a line to God. But religion does that, and that's where the war is. They put a seal to God saying that God is this way and that's it. It's this way or no way. And that is insane, because if you look at nature, you can tell the type of being or the type of ideation that the Spirit of God is, because you see the diversity between flowers, between mammals. There's so many different mammals, insects, trees. There's so much diversity, and life is living together, flowing in that whole circle of life. But when it comes to this thing, we just think that God is like, nope, it's this or that, and that's done. We're like, where are the different flowers? Where are the dimensions? Where are the nodes? Where are the chakra points? So religion most of the time is removing the metaphysical side of yourself, and that's where the war is. And now getting into how you protect yourself is by you also going back to the first law, which is mentalism, which is that whether now the war is coming from your neighbor or some guy from work or whatever, the first and only thing that you need to do is vibrate high. Now remember, I said that it's easy, but it's difficult, because how do you do it? You don't just get to vibrate high. You must vibrate, be higher than the person or the thing or the force that is trying to deceive you. Vibrate faster than it. Just like how it says in the Kabbalion, a very amazing book by the three initiates. Check it out if you haven't. It's called the Kabbalion. You talk about the 7 ancient African laws, or what they today now call the 7 laws of Thoth, or Hermes, Trismegistus, or Tehuti, which are the laws of mentalism, correspondence, cause and effect, the law of gender, the law of rhythm, law of polarity, all of that, the 7 laws that govern all things that exist, right? So in one of the sayings, it says that to escape the sorrows of the sadness of the physical material world, you do it by vibrating differently from them. So it's not that you're living in this fantasy where you are saying that the things of the world don't exist, like the bad things that are happening to people, but you vibrate higher than them, because you know them to be an illusion being caused by the fact that the cabal. I just recently watched this movie called, it's on Netflix, called it's called Leave the World Behind. In that movie, someone says there that the cabal, the people that were in power, these people are not in power. And that's the thing that's actually happening, is that no one is in power, no one is in control, but people still feel the shadow of religion controlling them. And if you look at the pandemic, as horrible as it was, it had a weird silver lining to it, because a lot of people got to see, because they were taken out of these cycles that they were never out of. They were like continuously doing things for years, so they got time. It's like the universe was just like, no, pause. And then people that would have never, they got time to sit and be like, oh my god, like this is like, what do you do? Most things don't work. You really have to be there. It's like the universe is like, boom, look at yourself. And so a lot of people got to look at that, and because religion, like, they couldn't find answers in anything, people started looking to the African spirituality, they started looking into culture, they started looking into doctors, into science, into what's going on. People were just left with they don't know what to look. Everything that they've trusted, now their world is collapsing, right? So that's a thing that at any moment, it could just, and it has, because no one is in control, but you have to take the control. Don't leave the world behind. It's basically that whole thing, kind of like decoding what I saw from that movie, is that it's like that Bible saying, be in the world but not of the world. Because if you're of the world, then the people who are part of the Lucifer experiment, or the Lux experiment, because Lux is luxury, light. So you are trapped under the light of this physical sun. The cars, the jewelry, all the things that are luxurious under the sun. But there's a hidden sun inside of you, which is the hidden manna. That's that star at the top of the Christmas tree. That's that star that your teacher used to put here by the middle of your forehead when you were a kid. All that is symbolic. The star that the 3 wise men followed. There's always this thing about the star. Oh my word, oh, he's a superstar. Because there is that inner star, which is your spark, which is that sacred part that I was telling you, that spiritual war is trying to control that, or people who are within the spiritual war, if they can touch that part. So that star is that sacred part of you, and that part needs to vibrate. And what makes that part of you vibrate is by you raising your consciousness, expanding yourself, opening yourself up, and relate and understanding that everything that you've ever thought that God was or is or could be, you are that thing. You are that thing. Once you can grasp that, then anything or anyone who tries to come with malicious intent to bring you harm, you naturally have a auric field of light around you that is vibrating so high that it can see past lower light, because anyone with ill intentions is functioning or they're projecting all of that from places of fear, lust, or a false sense of power, which are the lower chakras. So the immediate war that is happening with witchcraft, it's mostly happening on the lower base chakras, but there's still war happening on a deeper level, which is happening from the heart chakra upward, because now that's where the people in the cabal are messing with you psychologically, consciously. They are controlling your perception of life. They are telling you what to love through media. Love an Aston Martin, love a BMW, love this is your. They are giving you your blueprint. You naturally came here with your blueprint from the spirit world, but because of the dangers of this world, because of the spiritual world, if someone can capture you and control you, which is why there are those who escape the matrix or the system. That's the whole thing of what the matrix is. It's spiritual warfare. Souls come to earth with purposes from a divine realm that we couldn't even begin to fathom. They come here with purposes, but the earth in its long existence has been through so much things that a glitch has happened in it, where its natural way of life happening, which is souls come here, they learn, they develop, and then they move to other star systems. That natural cycle has been moved out. Now souls are coming to earth, but when they get to earth, they get trapped on earth, because those souls are no longer able to fulfill the initial intention that they came here with. And the contract to get out of earth was that they would get out having gotten this particular gift that they can only get from earth. And then earth would also get the unique aspect encrypted in it of that particular individual spark. So every soul that comes here leaves a signature on earth that gets recorded in the cloud, basically, of earth, in earth's Akashic records, and that becomes a blueprint for the next generation, for someone to pick up on that idea, or on that personality, or on that spark, or on that idea that soul represented. So the soul gets something on earth and it leaves something, and then it also gets to leave with something from earth. So it's like an exchange. But now souls come to earth and then they're getting stuck here, because there was this cabal of people that now told people that they have to buy their way into heaven using money through tithing. This is what was happening in the dark ages. People felt that they had to pay in order to get to heaven. And this is why the church became one of the richest powers in the world. But people who run churches have money, because those people are dealing with the psychological aspect of things. Remember, I said that you can fight with your neighbors about, your tree's leaves are falling into my garden, cut that tree, and like you think that, oh, maybe they're gonna go see a witch doctor to bewitch you because of the tree. That could be happening. That is happening in families. People are doing all these crazy things to each other, and just using natural laws of correspondence, using a tree that might, and all you have to do, which is the first protection, is to vibrate higher than that, because then you will see these things in the spirit plane before they even manifest. And then that's your first ability to protect, because once you see it there, it cancels out, because the spirit plane is the causal world. So you need to vibrate higher than that. You need to vibrate higher than the lower. That's happening on the lower chakras. But there's warfare happening on the higher, which is when our people are controlling your very idea of what or who you are. And that's what's even causing you to fight with your neighbor in the first place. Because initially you wouldn't. No one used to, like this, the thing, Ubuntu, the concept of Ubuntu was developed because of an experience, not because of something we thought. Ubuntu is not a thought thing, it's a lived out experience. It came about because so many things went wrong that initially the people were able to get it right, and that's why they built so many amazing civilizations all throughout Africa and the world. Because they got, it's not like African people, they were just great from the jump and then like, oh, you know, although everything is great from the jump because it contains that spark of God, but what qualifies the spark of God are the challenges of the physical. So in the physical, it's not that they were always just like, oh, high civilizations know how to build pyramids. No. Even if you look at how the pyramids and other structures were developed, they all started in the south. They all started in the south. I just wanted to see if I was still recording it. They all started in the south. In South Africa, as you go up Zimbabwe, into also Mozambique, and you begin to like go up the African continent, you can see structures that they have in Giza, in Egypt, that you find also in the south, that can show you where that comes from, because Egypt was the perfection of it. That's where they were like, oh yeah, we've been doing this for a long time. But they were earlier stone structures, like the one Sitola la in Mpumalanga, in Zaloyelang, where they were mapping the stars. It's where they were beginning to map those deep aspects of themselves. Remember earlier we were talking about how the ancients were able to foresee into the future and know that something was going to go wrong. So they mapped time. That's how amazing the ancestors were. It's like, damn, we are in trouble. We're in trouble because we are star travelers. But if we get lost, we might never return. In one of Kredi Muta's interviews, he says something also amazing. He says that when the Nomos came to Africa and they landed in I don't know which part, I don't know if it was in Mali where they landed, or it's just that the Dogons maybe have just settled there. But wherever it is that this thing happened, the Nomos told the Africans that if you human beings do not rise back up to take your rightful place in the great star flower, in the clusters of galaxy, to take your rightful seat as one of those divine beings, you shall exterminate yourself, and you will exterminate the earth in which you live. And then they said that the Nomos said that if we can get rid of war, of hatred, of hunger and poverty, they would once again come back to take us by the hand, and so that we would once again take our rightful place in the galaxy. And this is not to now give you this thing where you should be lazy again, like religion does, where you think that something is going to come from outside of you, because everything that the extraterrestrial beings are dealing with is what you are dealing with, but in a different level. So there's no having to sit and wait, because the brothers, or the galactic star brothers that are coming back, they're coming back psychologically and telepathically. These bursts of intuition and all these things that you sometimes feel, it's you communicating with different now aspects of yourself, on an ancestral, on a galactic, on a universal, because you are awakening all the chakras. And you need to remember that the chakras are vortex centers that get loaded with information, and this information is something in which you must be able to translate. So if right now in this conversation I switch and talk about something else, you need to grasp it. If I talk about something else, you need to grasp it. And it's not that you cannot grasp it, it's that you need to vibrate to a level where, because it could still be something strange that I'm saying, like, oh my word, wow, he's talking about so many things at the same time, but it's all spiritual warfare, your mind, because a certain chakra is still opening up to be able to receive that level of thought that chakra corresponds to. All your chakras are levels of thoughts. So with spiritual warfare, what entities are doing is that they want you thinking on a specific level, because if you think on a specific level, you shut out your other parts of yourself, and those parts aren't able to function, and then someone can control you. That's mind control 101. That's marketing. I can control your perception. I can tell you that something about you is not nice, but I have a solution. Here, buy this. And you look at yourself, and I psychologically convince you. That's why in The Art of War by Sun Tzu, they say that the greatest place to win over your enemy is in their mind. So to play with their mind. When you are weak, appear strong, and when you are strong, appear weak. Like never let your opponent know what's your next move, basically. So it's all psychological. That's what's happening. So the cabal, like in that movie, those people are kind of convincing the rest of humanity that they are in control when they are really not in control, because their time ended in 2012. Remember that the ancient Africans, the Mayans, the Olmecs, all throughout the world, the different ancient native people, in Chinese, they have the Native Americans, they have all these records of cycles of time. So they had prophecies. And 2012 was one of the significant ones, to say that once 2012 comes, it would be the end of the world. What that meant was, it was the end of a paradigm, because the universe, or the galactic star cluster system, for this thing that has just happened on Earth, this great atrocity, for it not to happen again, eventually there was a decision to let the Earth go through this great trauma or atrocity, but a time would be put or set in motion or set in stone. Because remember that what made the ancestors, or what makes you, the ancient ancestors, reincarnate, what makes you so amazing is that you did not write history after it happened. You wrote history and then you walked into it knowing what would happen, but you did that across generation. So that's what hieroglyphics and metaphors and stories are. It is a foreseeing that, damn, that generation over there is gonna have problems, and there won't be any way for me to communicate, but I can encrypt a message in this. And so that's what the ancients did. So the time cycle that the earth would have gone through, of people psychologically really kind of manipulating, all of that was said to have ended by 2012, which is what they call the end of the world, which wasn't the end of the physical world, but the ending of an age, the age of Pisces that we've just come from. And so we're moving to a new age of Aquarius, where there's more knowledge, there's more freedom, people have a greater wanting to know of God. There's more, as much as bad things are happening in the world, there's a lot of good that is happening, but we don't see that in the news, because the whole point of the news is to keep people scared all the time. Like in the news, 80% to 90% of the news, it's scary things. Someone stole, someone is bombing, the economy is falling, but they don't show you all the entrepreneurs, they don't show you all the people that are doing good, they don't show you all, they don't show you all these good things, and maybe they'll show you one, but The news mostly is to fight people psychologically, and it's not just the news. It's soapies, it's stories, it's movies, social media. All these things are to distract you from you tapping into that sacred part of yourself, and that's the war that is being fought on you. So there's a war that is happening on many different parts of yourself, and you have to be able to now grasp and begin to control your own reality, and not let someone else dictate who or what you say God is. Because once that happens, then someone can control you for generations. They can control you and your kids, because you will control your kids for them on their behalf, because they would have ruled the most important place, which is the mind. So all war is psychological. So how to protect yourself is by being higher, learning, being out in nature, opening your heart space. Your heart chakra is one of the most important barriers that you'll ever have. The innocent man, if you look at how babies survive from being babies to growing up to the age that you are, all of that is a divine aura. They don't even have to think about, they just protected by this other thing. We all just know, right? There's a force. So that force does not die out. It continues to protect you. But as you grow, it begins to fade, because that part of you is now being manipulated. So all aspects of you that would have been your protection are also dormant, because they need a certain part of you to be conscious in order for them to be active. So when you learn, when you grow, when you love, when you begin to expand yourself, and you begin to recall and to remember and to forgive and to heal, you let go of the heaviness, of the density, and you become a light being that they speak about in the book of Corinthians when they talk about the new body, or what they talk about in the new age as the crystalline being, the crystal, the light body. You begin to activate that Merkaba. You become a new being because you let go of all these old burdening thought forms. So anyone who would have ill intentions against you, you will still experience crazy things because you're in the physical, but you will have a basic core aura that will allow you to see any dangers on you or that would want to be instilled on you. So that's how you protect yourself, by raising your energy, eating well, being healthy, all of these things, understanding that it's psychological. Most of the time, you even think that people hate you that don't even think about you. You'll be thinking that your classmate or some of your coworkers, you don't even register in their minds. But maybe because of certain things, like because of your own project, you might. Yeah, sometimes, there might be something that way you're onto something, but most of the time people are just tripping. People ain't even thinking about you most of the time. But you just create these things in your mind where you think people are out to get you. You're just naturally paranoid because, that's what media and all these things give us. But the greatest war that we are fighting is ourselves. That's the greatest spiritual warfare. You not knowing who you are. That's the biggest one. You not knowing that you are the thing that is making the things to be possible. That is the greatest spiritual warfare. You're fighting yourself. There are these two, there's the good and the bad inside of you. And you don't know where to, your mind keeps, that is the greatest warfare, until you bring into balance within yourself again. Then you begin to escape the vibration of the lower density world. And so when you leave physically, you leave with your memory intact, which is the whole purpose of Earth being a starseed, is that, as I say, the souls come to Earth to learn. But for them to leave, they have to leave with their retained memory. Because imagine a soul comes to Earth and then it leaves here with less memory than it had. So the Earth can't let that soul go. Where is it going? It's like the Earth is like every soul that's supposed to leave is going to a different dimension. a different plane of existence, to its own ancestral destined place, according to its soul signature of what life is set out to be. So now here's the soul. It can't leave because it's like it's a soul with amnesia. Where's the earth? The earth, it can't let it go. So it goes to the astral planes, it heals those astral hospitals, but it can't move on to other planes, to other realms. It comes back to earth. Eventually that soul will get triggered to be like, and that's what an awakening is. And once that soul can learn that, then it begins to heal, because it can go back to the spirit world with retained memory. It's like, oh, that's why I came here. And that now it can move on into a higher plane and then be able to choose for itself. Because of how long it's been wounded, it won't immediately be able to just jump into, it'll be like, oh, maybe it'll go to a different terrestrial earth to complete the rest of the karma that it wasn't able to do on earth because of the disturbance that has just happened here, which is what we are all now working out with these light beings that are incarnating on the planet. Yo, I know I'm giving you a lot, family. Damn. Yeah. Hey, I'm just giving you a lot. This is a video that, to process this one, I mean, like, that's why in the beginning I was like, I don't know how I'm feeling about this one. I don't know, like, it's warfare. Absol in one of his songs, this is, it's warfare. Is warfare? No. Wait. So I think I'm gonna end it here. This one needs this one is ooh. Yay. Let's end it here, family. Let's end this one here. It's very deep, because I'm not seeing the end of my talking about it yet. So I'm like, instead of me being like, okay, I'm gonna conclude there, I'm just seeing this topic open more and more. People are gonna be in the comment section with many questions, like, oh my god. So I'm like, okay, let me end it here. And then we'll see how spirit moves us forward with this particular conversation, because I feel like it's too big to just be like spiritual warfare and then it ends. There's levels to it, as I said. There's levels to it. This is just like a So peace, love and light to your family. Much love. Thank you for tuning in to another episode. Blessings.